because I was working on 424 when Summer She Fled, Lori's sister's phone conversation with her came out, and it was too powerful. It was too much. I started listening. I'm not just going to do to summarize 2 days in a row. I just wanted to say that I'm Coach and Pastor Jenny McIntyre, and I'm very happy to be here with you. And I'm doing as much as I can to do the research and come to you with this information. I'm finding it harder and harder. I'm in between jobs right now and building a business from scratch. And so it takes a lot of time, particularly as I prepare to start delivering a seminar on justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. If you're ever interested in what I do on the site, I will leave a link to my humble business in the description. But let's do this. I would say that it was huge in the last 2 days. The FBI has had a very, very strong participation. They have spoken about burner phones, 18 in total, only 18. Um, I mean, I don't know if any of you uses burner phones, but the only people that I have ever learned use burner phones are those that don't want to be tracked. But the funny part is that they were mostly unsuccessful because Shad, Lori, and Alex, they were using burner phones, but they were accessing their email addresses to those burner phones. So a lot of the things that they thought that they would not be traced for, just they were traced for. Um, Again came the Lori Vallow investigation of those Malachite rings. Charles had already died in July, but Shade Bell was married to a very healthy 48-year-old woman called Tammy. And here was Lori ordering wedding rings. Um, Lori was also Googling how to remove the seat from my Jeep Wrangler. She did that on September 30. Just a couple of days later, that same Jeep Wrangler, which normally cannot be opened if the tire is there, had gotten rid of the tire and was shooting to Brandon Boudreaux through that Jeep, which is what it started everything because it, as a result of that failed attack, and he recognized in the Jeep, then he went to the police with that. It's just kind of crazy. In October, Lori was shopping for wedding dresses. Um, this is the same day as Tammy's funeral. The same day. Let that sit in with you. The same day that they were putting this young woman to rest, she's looking to shop for wedding dresses. It's kind of crazy. Um, they um, they found a bunch of pictures, and a lot of them were taken out of the flash drive, which was found in their vehicle. Pictures of love between Chad and Lori. Um, Interesting, the cross-examination. As I've said before, when you are cross-examining and you have very little to hold on to, you have to hold on to whatever you have. So the cross-examination asked them, did you ever read in any of those text message of emails, let's kill the kids? Would you kill the kids for me? I think we should kill the kids. But it goes back to the voir dire. Remember at the beginning where we were asking the jurors, we were saying, in order to know that a kid ate the cookie, do you have to see the kid actually eating the cookie? Or can you make that call based on the fact that the kid has crumbles all over him or her and that the cookie is not in the cookie jar? Would that be enough? And he had the motive, the opportunity, and it was right there, and you can see that the cookie is no longer there, and you can see all the crumbles on his face. And I remember there was at least one potential juror that said, no, I would have to see the kid actually eat the cookie. And he was let go because there's a lot of cases that are decided exclusively on circumstantial evidence. And the law actually gives the same weight to circumstantial evidence. Why is that? Because most crimes are not going to happen in front of a camera. It is presumed that most crimes are going to happen in a secretive way. And so this is why it's very, very important. So the fact that there are no emails or text messages where Lori is asking, let's kill the kid. Would you please kill the kids? We should kill the kids. That is pretty silly, if you ask me. 18 burner phones. 18 burner phones. Ultimately, 3 burner phones were able to be related exclusively and securedly to Shad, Lori, and Alex. To each one of them. 3. I think a bit too many still. Um, they found in a storage unit from Lori, they found a bunch of several set of aliases. You know, they were using different names, like if the text messages were addressed to different people or came from different people. One of those set of aliases was James and Alina, right? Which were those names, those pet names that Alex, that Chad had auto baptized himself with. On the same day that him and Lori came up with that idea. We've met each other in prior lives. I used to be this apostle, and you used to be this, and we love one another, and we're gonna end up together. There were researches about Ned Schneider in the computer. You know, there were researches about archangels and presiding council, and then again, just unbelievable information also about those rings and Lori requesting those to be custom made, and the cross examination was trying to find out that was trying to not trying to find out, but actually asking the FBI agent, well, did you look into what was Lori's ring size? Are you sure that she was ordering Shad's ring size? Like, man, we see them a few months later at the beach wearing Amalekite rings, married to each other. It's like I tell you, when they have very little to hold on to, they hold on to nothing. And of course, on the 24th, um, Summer Shiflett, Lori's baby sister, showed up, and there was zero interaction with Lori. But they called for the first time a representative of the FBI, which was going to represent the CAST unit. And CAST stands for Cellular Analysis Service Team. And the reason I find it kind of interesting is because we've been talking a lot about casts, right? In this trial, casting the demons out and casting this out and casting this out. And I find it kind of interesting that the unit that brought them down was the CAST unit, Cellular Analysis Service Team. Um, of course, they spoke about Melanie Woodrow. I remember what I told you in prior episodes that she was getting herself rid of a lot of her kid stuff and was desperate, right? And we understand that they attempted to kill Brandon Woodrow. Well, what they found also in that storage and in the houses as they carried away, you know, the searches, that Melanie Woodrow had like a coupon box in the storage facility with a bunch of credit cards, all of which belong to Brandon. All of which belong to Brandon. And that's kind of that was kind of like 424. And then of course came today. And today we found more information about this Archangel Raphael. And in those books that have nothing to do with the Bible, see, deception normally works very, very well if you take a little bit of truth and you mix it up with a lot of lies. And the only way you can escape being deceived is to do your own study, to do your own research, and to stay humble. Some of the things that I love about Christianity is that Jesus was called a friend of sinners. He sat with the prostitutes, he sat with the tax collectors, he sat with people that the local population considered sinners, right? Like if not all of us were, we are all sinners, right? But I love these. I don't know how that happened when I have my phone off. Um, came to, it really threw me off. Oh, Jesus was the Son of God, and God Himself left His glory and He became a baby. He was born to a poor family, and He was born in a stinking stable surrounded by stinking animals. That was God's entrance into this world. Notice the absence of ego. He became a carpenter, worked with his hands for other people, lived in a regular Jewish family, which back then lived under the oppression of the Roman Empire, which ended up crucifying Jesus. And so, as you guys can see, it is absolutely important to remember that if God Himself became a humble servant, then why should we want to be anything else but what we are? Forgiven sinners. And it is this desire to be more than, to be over people, to be powerful, to have had powers in prior lives. It is all of this nonsense that got these people into deep trouble. Well, this Archangel Raphael, which by the way, it's one of those personalities that Chad used to have in prior life, it's believed to be healers, to be help you overcome illnesses, addiction, and even poverty. In some book of archangels and angels and gemstones. The FBI again took center stage, and they went through more texting and more emails, but then came the call of Summer Shiflett, Lori's baby sister. They are, let's see here. The eldest is Stacy. She is the mom of Melanie Budropolowski. She died allegedly because of the diabetic condition, being very young, but even her own family, who has been given interviews lately, have a lot of doubts on whether that's exactly the way it happened. And we're talking about the Cox family talking about this. But at any rate, then came Alex, then came Adam. This is the DJ who was working with Charles Vallow to see if they could do an intervention and wake up Lori and prevent her from going into the deep end, which we know by then it was probably too late because he had been declared dark. And had all this not happened, only God knows if it would be one of the dead people, right? Then there was Laura Lee, who died as a baby. Then came Lori. Then came Summer. It was such an impactful conversation. And it was even more impactful because Summer was there while the conversation was being played. And in that call, Summer started softly saying, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I mean, I can't believe this, the kids' bodies had just been happened. She's like, I went on TV. I put on a strong face for you. I want to believe you. And Laura's like, you have to believe me. And she's like, no, I can't believe you. And then Laura's like, you have no idea how I've suffered. She's like, no, you were not suffering. You were dancing in the beach with Chad. You were taking pictures. And Laura's like, yeah, but that was months later. Oh, so she knew. She knew. Because you remember when Nate Eaton from Idaho News interviewed her around that time? She said that the kids were safe and that it was nice that we all were praying for them. But now she tells her sister that she knew. She's like, I was just trying to be happy again. With who? With Chad? The same guy in whose property the kids' bodies were buried at that time? I mean, it's hilarious because you can see that what the defense is going to claim is that somehow Lori was completely innocent, and based on the fact that she knew her kids were buried there and she was trying to live again with Chad, then the only assumption is that all the blame is going to fall on Alex Cox. Unfortunately, both Melanie Gibbs and Sulema Pastinis have clearly testified that Alex was of the complete dominion and control of Lori and Chad. This is why, when they exhumed Tammy Daybell's body, just a day later, or 2 days later, I think, Alex died, supposedly of natural causes, and now we'll never know because he was cremated. And prior to that, he got a priestly blessing from someone that had no business doing a priestly blessing, and that was Chad Daybell. And if you hear it, it sounds like a goodbye. Like if somebody knew Alex was not going to be alive anymore. You know, in all this tracing of cell phones and whatever, Lori and Chad made sure that their cell phones were not tracking. But Alex Cox, bless his heart, you can place him at Alex's property, at Chad Daybell's property, not only for the murder and burial of Tylee and Jay, you can also place him there on the night Tammy Daybell first was shot at unsuccessfully and later asphyxiated. He was the lynchman, and as he told Sulema right before he died, he said, I think I'm going to be their fall guy. No kidding. What a thing to say, particularly when you're going to fall dead the next minute, right? And so that was an emotional call, and I mean, Summer she held her own, and at the end, you know, the Mr. Woods, all Robert Woods said was no further questions, which I thought was very impactful. But then came the defense, and I have to admit that this was brilliant. Again, I don't think it's going to be good enough to set Lori free, but I think it makes for very good courtroom drama. He said, Mrs. Shiflett, Mrs. Daybell, I mean, they asked other questions, but this was like the last question. Mrs. Daybell failed you, right? She lied about the kids being safe. And she said, yes. And he said, no further questions. And see, when your client is guilty as charged, you need to take whatever wins you can take. And they already got a big win, which is the death penalty is off the table. But that stuff, like, what they're trying to say is that's the only thing she did. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of evidence that this jury would have to ignore to come to the conclusion that the only thing Lori did wrong was to not be honest about the kids being safe. She did a lot more than that. The cell phone tracking traced Alex to Yellowstone Park, but we know that Lori was there because you can see her in the picture. It also takes him to a shooting range where he was obviously shooting. There was other information of when they found the bodies, they going through Chad's garage and pulling weapons and stuff that they thought could have been used in the dismemberment of the children. It was a lot of graphic explanation, some of which I don't think necessary for us to cover. But the trial moves on, and I think that it's going to take a lot of work for that jury to overlook all the evidence that is in front of them, which looked at it a piece here, a piece there, a piece there, like very well was being said by one of the FBI representatives today. By themselves, they may mean nothing. All of them together, they are either the rotund evidence that Lori Vallow is guilty as charged, or she is the unluckiest person in the whole wide world. My friends, this is the summary of day 24. I'm sorry, of April the 24th and April the 25th of the Lori Vallow trial. I hope that you find this useful. Leave me your comments if you do. And I will leave you information about the playlist where I've been covering this trial and a little bit of information about my life coaching and executive coaching business because some of you have been asking and I'm not going to leave you hanging. Thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.